I don't want to be a loser.
You're not a loser. Where'd you get the idea you're a loser?
Because Dad hates losers.
Whoa. Back up a minute. You know what a loser is? A real loser is somebody that's so afraid of not winning, they don't even try. Now, you're trying, right?
Yeah.
Well, then you're not a loser. We're gonna have fun tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
We can tell them all to go to hell.
The Rocketeer, released internationally as The Adventures of the Rocketeer, is a 1991 American period superhero film directed by Joe Johnston, starring Billy Campbell, Alan Arkin, Jennifer Connelly, and Timothy Dalton. Hey there, gumshoes. Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm John, the host, and I'm here with these two wise guys. What's the rumpus, fellas? Brian David Marshall and Jason Alt.
I'm not doing funny voices.
Thank you, Ed Lauder.
It wasn't in your writer to do.
Yeah, no. I mean, this is as funny as my voice gets, as I've been told. And I've been told it's plenty funny on the internet.
Not a bad baseline. Yeah.
I feel like this one was another break glass in case of something. Like if the Cult of Films is running out of fuel, there's always the Rocketeer.
Up on the dome! It's him! It's the Rocketeer!
A holy grail of like 20 movies, and I feel like this was one of them. Jason, we're breaking the glass on this one because
you're so overselling this movie.
Okay, well, we'll get into that. I think you're gonna be very popular
man,
on this cast.
It's a great movie. I liked it, but holy grail of movies, break glass. Come on, man.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
it's a good movie, but this is an episode. Let's calm down.
Will you just excuse me for a minute?
No, please, stay.
No,
sit down.
Don't worry about it, Neville. I'll be right back.
Oh, my heart.
No,
my
listen,
everything.
listen. You're overselling the podcast, not the movie. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
You're so overselling this movie. You're so overselling this movie.
Okay. Well, I mean, the podcast is going to be a banger because of our special guest, and that's one Brian David Marshall, who has expressed his love for this movie. It sounds like we're on the same level, hopefully, not like this clown up here. But Brian, why did you want to talk about The Rocketeer?
This is just a movie that I think has definitely found a lot more love later on in its life cycle.
Yeah.
A director who I feel like is kind of in the shadow of very much starts his career in the shadow of Spielberg and Lucas, right? Like he actually, worked on all the original Star Wars movies, worked on all the original Raiders of the Lost Ark movies, and clearly, their sort of thumbprints are all over his camera lens. But it's just a movie that I have this like really deep affection for, a comic book property that I loved and was like really one of these things where it came out as a series of very short chapters in I think it was in the back of a comic called Star Slayer, which was a Mike Grell comic put out by Pacific Comics, like in the independent comics boom of the early 80s. And it was so striking and so singular, right? Like he had this just like incredible art style that harkened back to like all these like great classic high adventure comic book artists, the Frazettas and the Macro Boys and the Lou Fines and all the artists the kids love. And was doing this kind of like good girl art where he was like had Betty Page as one of the characters in the comic, and it was just like this real lightning bolt comic, and he would just put out like a chapter at a time very sporadically, and everybody loved it and looked forward to it. And it was really one of the first comics also that you saw get turned into a movie post Batman. You know, it was, and for it to be something that was very creator driven, right? Dave Stevens is listed as a writer on the movie. He was a very hands-on producer of the movie. You know, it's really exciting. It was really just exciting to see, and really disappointing when it came out in terms of the reception for the movie. You know, it definitely did not find an audience, and I think that when when I was teasing out that I was rewatching the movie last night on Twitter, and people were like, I freaking love this movie. Yeah. Oh my God. You know, everyone's like, oh, I love, and I think again, we've talked about this with other movies where it's a movie that really found its audience on, on VHS and DVD, and now even I think on streaming, you could just find it on, Disney Plus. And just watch it, right? Because it's it was bought by Disney. It was just a super exciting movie to me. Just an amazing cast, lots of really just cool old Hollywood bits of business in it. You know, like a character based on Rondo Hatton, who's just this mug. I don't know. I love it. I'm super happy with it, and I love Joe Johnston. Yeah. I love Captain America, the First Avenger. I think that movie is highly underrated in the MCU canon.
It was the Rocketeer with a budget.
Yeah. The Rocketeer had a budget. I mean, for the time, I think the effects in the Rocketeer are really good.
Oh, sure.
They kind of... There's only one time where it's very obviously a green screen, and
is that when Timothy Dalton
black line around,
turns into the Human Torch of the Roger Corman Fantastic Four? Yeah.
At the end, I noticed that at the end, because even the scene where they're running along the dirigible and it's exploding, I was like, wow, that looks pretty good still. But yeah, the scene where
they
he's
actually
flying
lit
out.
a blimp on fire.
Yeah.
The Griffith Observatory.
No CGI, boss.
The permits they needed for this. It's we got a backup blimp, but you better get it in 2 takes.
By the way, I just want to call out some guy on Twitter who irked me yesterday.
Oh, please do. This is
he's just he's like, oh, this movie's great as long as you don't think about how the Germans got a dirigible into LA. I'm like,
my God.
Just go.
It explains it in the film A, and it was a thing B. It was his.
Why are you booing him? He's right. How did they do it?
Was this your burner account?
Yeah.
Was this your burner account alt? Was this your alt?
Listen, I like this movie.
It was at alt delete. No, first off, I want to piggyback off of the good feeling and the mirth from Brian and come at it from just a film standpoint of just this movie is a warm hug. I mean, from the credits of how it just pulls open with that beautiful James Horner score, and the James Horner score is just as much of a character in this movie as anything else. It is gorgeous. Everything about this film is gorgeous. Your heroes are heroic. Your damsels are gorgeous. Your villains are literally mustache twirling. This is such a great throwback and homage to the early days of Hollywood, the golden age of Hollywood.
And Errol Flynn's family watching the first half of this movie,
yeah. Oh, my God.
Bet this was influenced by our Errol, and then they saw the second half of the movie. They're like, I'm going to call a lawyer.
No, they've already called that lawyer. Errol Flynn was possibly a Nazi.
Oh my God.
Errol Flynn. This is based. This plot element in the story is based on some real rumors about Errol Flynn and one of his really good friends, who he shared anti-Semitic comments with in letters, and his friend was a spy for the Nazis.
He was Neville Sinclair.
There's a lot of argument back and forth about it, but Errol Flynn is no stranger to people saying he's a Nazi. So I think they're grateful to get the first half of
and
the
Errol
movie.
Flynn would have been like, no, I'm not a Nazi. And they would have been like, oh, okay, I'm confused. Let's just shoot
Right.
them both. But like in the movie, he's like, do you care who's signing your checks? Like, yes.
Oh, come on, Eddie. I'm paying you well. Does it matter who I work for?
It matters to me.
Yes, I do.
Paul Sorvino has a great.
He's
a great
like, I'm a
moment.
criminal, but come on, man. Even criminals hate them. You remember when America didn't like Nazis?
Yeah, I mean, I got really emotional last night watching the movie. I was like, yes. Even the bad guys hated Nazis back then.
Yeah. Paul Sorvino reprising his role from Dick Tracy, same makeup and everything. But you know, Brian, you said how much you know from a comic book standpoint, how they nailed it.
Oh, almost nailed it. So I as a comic fan, I actually have a pretty major quibble with the movie.
Sure.
In terms of not just like treating the movie as an isolated thing on its own, right? I think it's fine, but from the comic, Jennifer Connelly's Jenny is no Betty Page, right? You know, she plays Jenny. She's a girl who's come out to Hollywood to make it big. She's an ingenue. She's beautiful. You know, she's sweet. In the comics, that character is literally Betty Page, who's a pinup model, who is, you know, pretty practical about men and money. Not in a bad way, not in a critical way, right? Like she and Cliff have like real affection for each other. Cliff doesn't always get it. He's sometimes challenged by it, right? But it's a more complicated character. And so it's a little disappointing to me that she just plays it so sort of like straight, so sort of like, you know, basically plays the ingenue. It's really also because before the movie came out, I was working in a comic book store. And Jennifer Connelly came into the comic store, and I you know, knew her from I always forget, it's Labyrinth, right? Yes, yeah. I confused my demon alternate realm.
Or Phenomena, you know, from Dario Argento.
No, Legend would have been the one at the time, right?
Yeah. And Legend is what, Mia Sara?
Mia Sara, yeah.
Yeah. Who, by the way, is married to Sean Connery's grandson and has a kid named Dashiell Connery. Jesus. Anyway.
Yeah. It's already baked in. He should have been. Yeah.
That kid wants to be Bond.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't get to be Bond, he'll kick your fucking ass.
But yes, Jennifer Connelly walks into
and she's looking at the comics, and you know, I'm like, hi, you know, can I help you? And she's like, yeah. You know, she's like, I'm going to be in this movie called The Rocketeer. Please don't tell anyone. You know, I'm playing the Betty character. And so, like, you know, got her a bunch of, like, comics and you know, pulled some back issues and, you know, and so, like, she knew what she was getting into, you know what I mean? And to see it sort of not play out that way was a little disappointing. And I understand that maybe
that
they couldn't use
Disney, do you think?
Well, no,
That
almost,
too.
I think a lot of it was Disney.
I was going
you
to
know,
say that.
and it's a big part of the appeal of the comic, right? Like, she's a fascinating character, and obviously, you know, Dave Stevens had this like very, very like classic, almost like Vargas Playboy illustration, good girl quality to his artwork, right? He was pretty unbelievable. You know, one of the all-time greats in that style. Character was their relationship was complicated, and as much as it would have been, oh my god, it would be really titillating to see Jennifer Connelly play, you know, someone who's doing pinup photography instead of necessarily just being a traditional actress.
She didn't want to cut her bangs for the role. She refused.
You know, it's a little disappointing to see it just kind of reduced to that, you know, to that formula. You know.
I want to not push back, but I just want to say, like Jason pointed out, within the confines of Disney, they did that
Absolutely.
as much as they could, because they did make sure that all of her assets were on full display. She was a very titillating character. She was the object of every man's desires. Even this, like, at a point, you almost believe that she gets to Neville Sinclair in a very organic way. Like he starts being like, oh, it's a shame I'm a Nazi because, man, if I knew you existed, maybe I would have made some other choices.
All I have to do is be slightly more charming than your poor boyfriend who just yelled at you.
That's all I need.
Not watching him fly a plane because you were working.
One day, Jenny, a man will look into those eyes and he'll drown and never be saved.
Like you said, she is, her comic book counterpart is very aware of, men, and she knows how to play. But I feel like she, Jenny Blake in the film does as well, because she turns it on. Yes, it could be said that maybe she gets caught up in the whirlwind of the fame when she is at dinner with him, but she also figures out, the peril she's in and uses her weapons accordingly.
Absolutely. One of my favorite lines in the movie is I finally got to play a scene with Neville Sinclair.
Absolutely.
I finally played a scene with Neville Sinclair.
Yeah.
when she fools him into thinking,
she's cunning.
She's going along with it.
How dumb is he, though? She's not
He's
cunning
very-
at all. He's dumb. She wakes up from being, like, chloroformed, and she's like, do you have anything sexier to wear than this?
As she
you
zips up the
rascal.
thing.
I bet you chloroform all your women, don't you?
He probably did.
Because it was a kink. Yeah, no, but
Everyone's mad at him for that. He's like, you guys remember I'm a Nazi, right? Like, I thought that would be what you were mad about.
Yeah. I mean, as much as Kim Richards was your childhood, I was the right age. Like, Jennifer Connelly was my everything, and the fact that she just waltzed into your comic book store is like
it was definitely chorus of angel sounds going off, and just like holy crap, just absolutely stunning, right? That thing where you see people sort of on screen with beautiful people, everyone kind of just looks beautiful, but sometimes you see someone who's an actor or an actress and you see them out in the real world or among us normals.
Yeah.
You're like,
standing next to
crap.
a dude with Cheeto tits checking out back issues of She-Hulk. It's a proper context to appreciate her physical attractiveness for sure.
Yeah.
I think they found her equal in Billy Campbell, though, because he is a beautiful man. Like, these are the two most beautiful people on the planet as your protagonists, and it sells. And then you put James Bond in the mix as your villain, and Alan Arkin as the brains, and it's just a perfect soup of who's delivering the dialogue. I mean, Terry O'Quinn, Howard Hughes. Like, from top to bottom, there's no flaw in the casting.
So, like, if I had to choose between Alan Arkin, Timothy Dalton, and Terry O'Quinn, as somewhat like you get to cast one character actor in your movie, I don't even know who I would pick. Right?
That's
like, and like you get Ed Lauder in there too, right? For good measure, right? Like. He's like your number 9 hitter in that lineup, but
he's the one that like is so down on the lineup he just says fuck it, I'll do comedy, which is fine. I'll keep this same look on my face like I'm a 1940s FBI agent. I'll be
dad.
Be the straight guy in a wacky comedy.
You got that one free, kid. One more like that, and you'll be eating soft food for a month. Yeah. Take it easy, Cliff. Come on, let's go. That flyboy hangs with my kisser, and you let him waltz? Maybe you had it coming.
Terry O'Quinn, man, he could have really... He didn't look anything like Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes didn't have a mustache in 1938. Terry O'Quinn didn't put any Kleenex boxes on his feet.
They used the mustache to smuggle in the Hindenburg. So
it's so the tragedy of Terry O'Quinn is that he is only remembered as John Locke from Lost. And he did so much. He had such a career before that.
He was, and always will be the stepfather to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I pitch Patriot. Please watch Patriot.
Oh, Patriot's fantastic.
It, but oh man, it's one of my.
I kind of got derailed in season 2. I got to be honest. I need to still go back and watch it. But season 1 of Patriot is one of the best seasons of TV ever made.
Yeah.
Brian, can you give us a 60-second rundown tops of what the Rocketeer is about for anyone that's watching this that hasn't seen it?
No, 60 seconds. No, I'm sorry.
I can do 60 seconds. I can do it. I can jetpack and fights Nazis.
Done.
That is it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cliff Secord is a pilot doing aerial shows, trying to compete in nationals. Alan Arkin is his mechanic, best friend. Yeah, they find a jetpack that thugs are trying to retrieve, which we find out was built by Howard Hughes. Nazis are also trying to get it, and the thugs were working with the Nazis unwittingly, as we find out later. And Billy Campbell ends up with the jetpack and is like, "Hey, this is great. We can make a lot of money at the aerial shows, with as the Rocketeer." And it's just a super cool movie. Just leans into the time period, leans into all the great Hollywood stuff.
Was pretty funny to me, and we're gonna play a little trivia game. Just one question trivia here. Thinking about everything that this film contains, and it being a Disney movie, we have murder, we do have blood. There's a little bit of blood in this. There is a pan down on Jennifer Connelly's zoom in cleavage. So there is all these things.
It's
but
like a POV too.
I know. Oh my god, it's so creepy.
Guy POV, hey.
Yeah. W.C. Fields is like Weinsteining the shit out of poor. Yeah. But for a PG film, though, what do you think is the warning sign before you play this film? It says rated PG 4, and anyone could buzz in, and everyone at home play along. Go ahead, Brian.
Smoking.
I will give you smoking, but it's so funny how they word it, and it's tobacco depictions. Why this got a PG for tobacco depictions? And I can't remember one person smoking in this thing besides Timothy Dalton at the end when he's on fire. All of the stars of this, though, the real superstar was Jan from The Office.
When you're alone, who cares for starlit skies?
I like the jetpack. I thought the jetpack was the star of the movie.
The jetpack,
that jetpack did whatever you needed for the scene. Do you need him to push a 2-ton truck 250 miles an hour down a dirt road? Perfect. Do you need him to slide 3 feet on a dinner cart? He'll do that too.
Do you need to explode later because you have a small leak? You just remove the gum. You got it all. Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about that for a second, because I think they do a great job early on, right, where they establish that, Billy Campbell has this chewing gum and he puts it on his plane for good luck.
That's fresh paint, damn it! You want me to crash? Chewing gum isn't going to keep your butt up in the air.
And then later they use it to plug a leak from the fuel cells on the jetpack.
Come on, we need something quick. Let's see if our luck's still holding.
And then later it plays this critical role in the and you realize what that's a perfect example of.
Chekhov's gum.
Yes.
We did it. Got there. As a chemist watching the movie, they were like, the Germans couldn't quite figure out how to solve the overheating, and we did it by having a separate cooled tank, and also you could shoot a huge fucking hole in it, and methanol will leak everywhere, but plug it up with some gum. The Nazis couldn't figure out how to make a double-welled chamber. That cools the guys that invented the V2 rockets, they can't figure out a jetpack, but ours is so you can
really
shoot a hole in it.
Really
fucking who
burns my
cares?
ass, Jason.
What's that?
You don't really burn my ass. A jetpack.
I know. His legs would be on fire half of the movie. I know.
He didn't have the proper jetpack posture, that's for sure.
No. You could literally see he's in this almost, bent, almost formation, and the fire is going on him. The animated fire is, and I'm just like, what? But that's my only gripe with the film. I mean,
Those
besides
are
that,
dungarees, baby. They don't.
It wasn't, chewing gum was didn't have lead in it or something. So maybe, it was pure epoxy. That's what he was chewing on. So I mean, this was a very Dick Tracy-esque movie too. I mean, we had
you had a Dick Tracy villain just walking around.
Where is it?
Where's what?
The rocket.
Just a slight tap on the head from Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah.
Like a pot. She does that, what, two or three times?
That's like her go-to move. Like, listen, you don't go to sleep when someone hits you with a pot. That's a coma.
Yeah, it's so slow too.
I hate to nitpick all the science of this. Actually, it takes 4 minutes to suffocate somebody with chloroform, but like,
but it's still
it's a Disney. I get it. There's a jetpack.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Which is equal parts it's like it's the MacGuffin. It's a cool. You have a weapon. Like it's the Kroll blade, right? Like it's the thing of the movie that sets it apart, but it's also the MacGuffin. So,
but also it's like King Arthur's sword almost, because everybody had their hands on this rocket, but there was only one Rocketeer.
There you
go. Well, again, they had the rocket, but they didn't have the helmet, right?
Yeah.
Peavy makes the helmet.
How do I look? Like a hood ornament.
That's a pretty major innovation.
Yeah. Plus, nobody else was dumb enough to try it.
Well, that's the other
even
thing.
They tested it. That scene in the field where it was on the tether, just swinging around in a circle. I'm like, this is really funny. I did not appreciate how funny this was when I was like 7 when this movie came out.
Right.
But, holy shit! Just watching that thing swing around in a circle, and they're like, it'll run out of fuel eventually, and then it goes in the sky and chases them. That's some high quality hijinks.
It did feel like very authentic to many plans I had for things in my 20s in terms of like, how you prepared for, like, yeah, it'll work out, then now that's not a cop car, all those kind of like, yeah, we'll be fine.
But it was great. The movie took its time to show we don't know what this thing, because it feels like almost like an alien thing. It felt like the spaceship from Flight of the Navigator almost, because it was just like, we don't even know what this is. It looks like a vacuum cleaner, and people got it mistaken for that. And it's just like, okay, we figured out it's a rocket, but how much fuel does it hold? How much, putting this gum on the rudder make any difference? All this stuff. The fantastic scene, and there's like no exposition, but it does such a great job of like the show don't tell as far as like the Nazi propaganda video. Yeah. Oh, it immediately raises the stakes of small town hijinks to global like threat and issue. Because at this point in their world in the war, the Nazis are like, we need to keep an eye on them. This might become a problem. But Hitler's still allowed to like fly Zeppelins and do his peace tour. That's what they show in the movie when they go and they see the newsreel and they're just like, Cliff's just like, peace tour. I don't know about that guy. And they're like, we don't know. But
actual 1939 Hollywood, it would have been like, yeah, he's a Nazi. And they're like, well, let's hear him out.
Yeah, exactly.
I hear the Nazis did a speech for 50,000 people at Madison Square Gardens this year.
They did. Yeah, that's a pretty famous event.
And that's why it's so believable that he could literally be like, snap his fingers and them all just like, just Nazis appear out of a bush at the end of the film, because it was so integrated back then. And, Zeppelins were allowed to fly through everything. So all of that kind of, yeah, I know. Jesus.
No air traffic control. You got rockets and Zeppelins and biplanes all just intersecting flight paths. It's a mess.
Right? Yeah.
Howard Hughes crashing into people's houses.
How good is Timothy Dalton?
Bloody amateurs.
He's so like plays it kind of like super broadly early on, and then becomes more villainous as the movie progresses, as he like, sort of lets down his mask. But like, I would watch a Joe Johnston, Timothy Dalton, Errol Flynn biopic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I like the scenes where they're shooting an Errol Flynn movie, with the sort of famous sword fight on the stairs Errol Flynn scene that is also in Princess Bride, right? Like, it's so funny that years later, you know, you see that and it's like, oh, that looks like Princess. Oh, wait, no, Princess Bride doesn't come out for a few years, and it is definitely they're both referencing something else. But he's just so fantastic, and he's continued to be fantastic. I think he might have the best post Bond career of any Bond.
Maybe it's because it's reversed because no one appreciated his Bond films. The wrong people didn't appreciate his Bond films.
Wasn't License to Kill kind of a fucking banger?
I thought he was great.
If anyone says what's your favorite Bond, everyone's like either Roger Moore or Connery, right? So it's just like, or even Daniel Craig if you're a Zoomer, but no one's gonna say Timothy Dalton's on top of that list.
I would.
Right. Like
License
I said, the
to
wrong
Kill was
people
the
are
best
wrong.
James Bond movie until Casino Royale, if you ask me.
There you go.
And it was dedicated to the brave fighting men and women of the Mujahideen, because not everything ages well.
Jesus. You said at the top of this, Brian, it's just depressing that it didn't find its audience then, because it wasn't like action-packed and adult enough for adults.
Right.
And it was too slowly paced and had too much character development for children. So I think it just like missed its audience on both like intersects.
Yes.
But to us, it's just like, but that was the perfect, it had the perfect balance of both.
Yeah. And again, for me, as someone who grew up on the comic, right, you know, is reading the comic when I'm a teenager, seeing some of those scenes translated, like it's a much more effective translation of the comic than anything other than the first Superman movie. Like, I think it's you know, I don't think Batman ends up being a very effective.
It was a Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, it's a Tim Burton movie.
What
I'm
about Dick
just
Tracy though?
Dick Tracy fucking
Those
sucks.
villains had legs. I thought they just had weird faces. I didn't realize they had bodies too.
Yeah.
Dick Tracy stinks.
Wait a minute.
Tracy,
Okay.
Whatever you might feel about Dick Tracy as
Holy
a
shit.
movie,
Yeah.
it is a horrendous adaptation.
Sure.
of
Okay.
Dick
Okay.
Tracy.
Okay. Whew.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
You got us.
Yikes.
But
Man.
but just from the adaptation point of view, like Dick Tracy was this bleak, dark noir comic strip.
It was like Judge Dredd in yeah. No, I get it.
It is really dark. Like, characters are hiding out from the cops in a hole in the docks in winter, and the waves are coming over, and the ice is, you know, closing up, and he's got to stay there. And there's like weeks of this character slowly dying in a hole.
Yeah.
As you know, it's like that's.
But again, Disney. It's Touchstone.
Yeah. It
It's
should have been
Disney.
a black and white movie.
Yeah.
It should have been done the way they eventually treated Sin City.
Yes.
You know, and it should have been brutal, right? It should have been noir. It doesn't even need to be violent.
Rated
It can
R
just be
Dick
noir.
Tracy. Oh shit, that would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing
It would
everything
be
dark
huge.
and gritty except Dick Tracy.
See,
Yeah, and
but,
Dick Tracy started there.
But they did. I'm gonna push back the same way I pushed back with Jennifer Connelly's character, and they were able to do it within a Disney, the confines of being a Disney film, because they murder the mob boss, who happens to be Paul Sorvino, with vagina lips eating oysters, and they just like sink him, and he just dies in this box. So it's just like. And Disney was doing that shit back in the day, like the boombox, like Glenn Close's Pirate and Hook.
Batman worked and Captain America didn't. They had no idea.
Yeah.
You remember that 1986 Captain America with Ned Beatty in it?
Oh yeah.
Would you pull the car over, please? I think I'm going to be sick.
He was on a motorcycle.
That's Albert Payun, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. J.D. Salinger's son. Matt Salinger.
Nephew.
Oh, nephew. Sorry. Yeah, his superpower was to pretend that he was sick to his stomach and run around and steal people's cars. I love that movie.
I don't love that movie. Yeah, I mean that. But I have a pretty. And
starts out strong. It starts out so strong.
It's not good in a bad way, like that leaked Menahan, Golan, Yori Globus Fantastic Four movie. That has
Oh,
really,
the
like,
Corman
been
one.
leaked.
Yeah. That one's great.
Was
And
that
they
Roger
only made
Corman?
that to keep the rights. It is a
God,
Corman.
it was,
It's a Corman. Corman didn't direct it, but it was a Corman studio.
It was a Corman production. Yeah.
Yeah.
They hired Corman to
he-
be like, we're losing the rights. We better make this shit. Yeah.
We reuse any set pieces from Death Race 2000.
I have pictures of me hanging out with members of the cast of that movie at Jim Hammond's Universe, the same store I met Jennifer Connelly.
Nice.
Oh,
I organized. So if you watch the documentary about the Fantastic Four movie,
yeah.
The guy who played Reed talks about coming to the East Coast for a tour to support the movie, and that was actually a tour that I organized of the stores that were owned, this chain of stores in New York called Jim Hanley's Universe. And we were trying to, for whatever reason, we're convinced, because just hopeless optimists that this was going to be the good Fantastic Four movie.
There will be one eventually.
It accidentally was, though. It was accidentally the best Fantastic Four movie.
It is actually the best Fantastic Four movie.
Pretty good.
It's like they made that leaked script where Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to play Doc Ock, and he kept saying he was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's like if they made that movie.
Yeah.
Which I kind of wish they had. I'm Dr. Octopus. I'm a genius. I have 3 PhDs. Idiot. Get down here and fight me.
Just bringing this back to the Rocketeer.
Sure, if we must.
If you insist.
If I insist. Brian's coming at it from a comic book nostalgia. I'm coming at it from Hollywood. Just, Jason, please tell me why we're wrong. Why was this not the the best,
At the time, At the time when I was taken to a movie that was a Disney movie, I was just sort of like, all right, I have an expectation. So for whatever reason, like, everything kind of entertained me back then, and I didn't really discern. So I think anybody that was a certain age in 1991 is going back and like, oh, the movie fucked, actually. People have to go back for it.
Yeah.
That's why I think they should go back for Dick Tracy while they're at it. Make up your own mind.
Yeah, that's a whole other show. Us yelling at Brian why he's wrong about Dick Tracy.
You're coming back for the Dick Tracy episode. And we're gonna put you in some.
All right, I will. I will rewatch it and all of the Warren Beatty interviews, Dick Tracy specials that he's made, so that he can retain the rights to Dick Tracy, so no one else can make it.
Also, that soundtrack ruled. It was like 7 Madonna songs that weren't in the movie.
Yeah, she was. They made Madonna a great actress.
I like the Tough Turf soundtrack more. That's just me. Wow,
that's playing. That's fishing with freaking dynamite. That, besides the beefy, sweaty, whatever they are, the heart attack beef sweats or whatever. It's a good soundtrack.
That's gonna be my Mac Attack cover band. The beefy,
the beefy sweats.
Attacks.
Yeah, the beef
All right,
fart sweats.
What's your band's name? Oh, our influences are mostly German. You wouldn't have heard of them. We're called Jack Black and the Heart Attack. Alternate ending to High Fidelity.
Yeah, the double whopper, whatever.
PG movie. It's for everybody.
It's for everybody.
I'm going to show this to the kids.
Who do you... Okay,
Margot Martindale. Yeah, Margot Martindale fans can watch this movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you boys aren't ordering, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
Well, hold on.
It
does work.
That's there's some of us who are pretty hardcore, and it's an early Margot Martindale. I think it's only her second actual movie.
I watched all of Sneaky Pete. That's how much of a fan I am.
I liked Sneaky Pete. I think the first season was great.
Yeah, first season was great.
It kind of it trails off a little bit, but I like everyone in it's great, and Margot Martindale's great.
I kind of love the weird, like, Pee-wee's Big Adventure style, like, actual Millie's, the restaurant. It's this weird giant dog. It's like the equivalent.
It's called the Bulldog. And so when he was naming all the other places,
it's right out of the
comic. I was like, what are these places shaped like?
It's right out of the comic, and I believe, if I remember correctly, there's photos of the actual. It's like an actual place that existed in that time period that Dave Stevens was using as for reference.
It reminds me.
So it
of,
was actually a place.
The donut in Mars Attack, like the donut shaped donut shop. Yeah,
the elephant shaped hotel in Atlantic City that
sticks
later
out
became
in this
a
film.
brothel.
Yeah, yeah. What Billy Campbell too? Like, talk about lead. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations off air about leading men in the 80s, right? I think this is an appropriate time to bring this up. And you have your Billy Campbell, who was, I think, he went on to have a good career, but it wasn't as meteoric as some, right? Like,
this was his first good role, man. He did like 40 episodes of Crime Story, which ruled. He did some Dynasty, but like this was his first like movie role.
Hey,
Like,
they don't give him
91. It's not like he was a leading man in the 80s.
They don't give him a ton to do. He's on Crime Story, but he's not always in Crime Story.
Sure.
They don't give him a ton to do on that show. I've recently rewatched the entire run of that show, and also John Polito, who is in The Rocketeer, is also in Crime Story.
Wasn't Kevin Spacey in that too?
Kevin Spacey's in one episode of Crime Story. It's the start of season 2, and he essentially plays Jack Kennedy, sexually assaultive Senate,
which is a stretch for him, I think.
It is. Well, yes. I mean, he was assaulting women, so I mean, it is a little bit of a stretch there.
Little stretch, yeah. Little difference. Do you guys think that Cliff Secord was not as popular as a big time hero as far as like an Indiana Jones go because he was so close to Indiana Jones? Because he's not particularly smart in the film. He is good at what he's good at. He's a specialist. He is a flyboy, right? Like he knows about.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what
he knows about aviation.
He's brave. Like
he
if
can't
you
fight.
were if you flew a fucking plane in the 1930s that your buddy Yossarian worked on, like
you're a fucking superhero.
You're an idiot, right? But like, even in like the 1950s and 60s, like the right stuff isn't about people who are like, this plane's really well designed. It's about people whose wives are like, yeah, they look in the horizon, see a pop, and they're like, I hope that wasn't my husband. Like. He was just brave and stupid, and that's kind of, you have a jetpack. It's like Superman. He can't fight. He just flies at them and punches. Same thing.
And he had Alan Arkin. He had Peavy to be the brains, right? He didn't even have to be a complete package of a person. He just had to be
the guy.
He just had to have courage. Yeah.
He had a guy
just had to be like, I just believe I'm slightly superstitious. I put gum on the tail of my plane, and it works. And I'm just going to do this thing.
Yeah. Oops! I won the day. Because
how stupid are the guys that were running away from the FBI with a jetpack, and they're like, they never thought to use that to get away. Strap it on, bud.
I don't think
you know how fast you can push a truck wearing that thing.
Well, that was the goons, right? That wasn't the Nazis. That was just they were hired for a job. They didn't know what it was. They thought it was a vacuum cleaner. Yeah. It just the whole Cliff Secord character, like even the name Clifford Secord, it doesn't scream like Luke Skywalker or Han Solo or Bruce Wayne. It's just. He's just like an everyman. He's kind of a boob. He makes the bad choices all the time.
At least I'm beginning to feel a bit better about the competition.
You worked here long.
Oh, yes. I waited on you last time. So.
I think he's supposed to be like, if you look at the character, I don't think he's Indiana Jones. I think he's more Luke Skywalker. I think that he's more like kind of like just good-hearted, do the right thing. Yeah. I'll strap this on and I'll fly and I'll do what I need to do.
And then
golly, Mr. Hughes, I just need it one more time to rescue my gal. I
don't want to be the Rocketeer. I just want to use the rocket to fight.
So to get back to Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah. And I mean, who would argue with that?
Maybe part of the problem is he is not this kind of gravel voiced hero that I think people come to expect from comic books and superheroes. And I think he's much more everyman, and I don't think that played for people at the time. I think people really wanted Batman.
He's not stoic at all.
Action star.
Yeah.
They wanted Bruce Willis or Sylvester Stallone or Schwarzenegger or something.
He's too affected with whatever is going on, right? He's always like losing his cool. The only like smart decision I think he does when they're at Millie's diner, like he orders like the sloppy ass sandwich, she orders the soup, and so he knows that about her because they're in a relationship. So when they go to the deep sea or whatever the club is, like. and he's the waiter, he pours her soup to get her attention. And that's how he puts the, it just so happens that that's a good vehicle to put a note in. So it's just like, okay, so he's not like just going like bull in the china shop all the time. Like he uses what he knows.
You think the note in the soup and then standing there like an asshole with his Rocketeer costume under his waiter uniform that didn't quite cover it?
That's my favorite part.
No.
He's got the leather flight jacket.
Because she's sort of like, okay, I'll see you later, waiter, and he's like, are you sure? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's a mastermind putting a note in her soup.
He's too regular.
Soup on it so she can't grab the note.
Yeah.
And I think, but I do think all the expectations for the movie, right? Like post Batman. Again, Joe Johnston is like an art director on all the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies.
Star Wars.
He works on all the Star Wars movies, right? He has sort of like the wind of Lucas and Spielberg at his back. He's going to be the better Joe Dante, and I think it's the movie's almost like a little too sweet for people.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a good PG thing. Well, now that we have like the Marvel stuff, like. They would have made this PG-13 and it would have been a lot quippier and it just would have been, I don't know, Disney would have made this a little more generic. This is when they were trying shit and I appreciate it.
Yeah. It was a true throwback. And I think that...
Right. I have a question. You got to settle something for me. Is this a superhero movie?
Yes.
Is that a qualified yes? Is that like a,
well, yeah,
it's on the fence?
It's definitely a superhero comic book. I mean, Doc fucking Savage invented the jetpack in the comic book. Like, there's no question.
But Doc Savage isn't a superhero. Doc Savage is
he's a superhero character.
He's a pulp character.
This is a Flash Gordon. This is a oops, I'm a superhero.
Right. It's like
that's
the thing is he's sort of straddles this line between pulp hero and
is Iron Man a superhero?
Well, yes, because and this is where my weird rules will kick in.
Okay.
Yes, because the Punisher's a superhero because he exists in a superhero universe and interacts with it.
Oh, so he only fought pedestrian, blimp-born Nazis and.
No. I'm just saying that you can't use any Marvel character who is who doesn't sort of adhere to what you would think of as the tropes of a superhero. If they do anything extraordinary, they are a superhero just because they're in a superhero universe. So that's not going to apply here because there isn't a superhero universe for him to live in. So he feels more in the tradition of the Phantom, the Shadow, Doc Savage, right? And
the Shadow had supernatural powers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but not a superhero.
But I think he's as much
a superhero. He doesn't have superpowers.
He's as much of a superhero as Indy is because Indy is an archaeologist.
Batman hangs out with Superman. He's the superhero. He can kill Superman. He's a superhero.
He is Indiana Jones is an archaeologist. Clifford Secord is a flyboy. He's a pilot. So he finds himself in adventurous situations, but I don't think he's a superhero.
Yeah.
Well, what's your take on it? Yeah.
I think he, like, if there's like a sort of meter, I think he just ticks over into superhero. But I could be talked off that ledge into pulp pretty easily. It's difficult because, again, he's the only character in his universe that does what he does, right? It's not like this superhero, it's not, that's just not the world, right? He's a guy who found this one extraordinary thing that gives him this ability that nobody else has. Right.
He's doing a job. He's a specialist, and that one thing that he's good at happens to be the thing that gets his girlfriend back.
Tie adventure, pulp, that kind of thing, but not.
Or even
okay, how about this?
I'm talking myself out of it.
Disney offered Joe Johnston first Avenger on the basis of how he directed
That's true.
this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a check in the hero.
Yeah.
So it wasn't based on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
I mean,
right.
Listen, that movie
Stuart Gordon, yeah.
Could have given him Ant-Man,
Sure.
But I love First Avenger. I think that is a very underrated movie.
But that argument is like Captain America signed up to be a hero. Superman, it's different because he's a fish out of water. He is just a person that's in a different environment where he just happens to be the most like an atom bomb, right? Like he's just like, oh, well, I'm this now, so I guess I'll do good. And then like his ilk kind of invade. But
like if you live in the Marvel or DC universe and your power is that you have superheroes on speed dial and you know a guy and you can get something to happen, you're a superhero. It's a pretty it's a pretty rubber stamp passport. There's not a high bar to get over if you're in the DC. Sergeant Rock, maybe a superhero, right? He interacts with Batman. I'll give it to you.
Cliff's friends are hanging out at Millie's Diner. Yeah, so yeah. That's pretty much it. Closing thoughts, we'll say, on Rocketeer. Jason, take it away.
Nazis are bad, and I wish that wasn't a controversial stance.
It still isn't. You would think that, it still isn't, but it's hard to tell these days.
Punch Nazis and jettison them out of fucking dirigibles. Yeah. But just a super fun movie. And also, if you can find the Dave Stevens Rocketeer stories, definitely worth going back and checking them out and reading them and contrasting them with the movie. Because there's a lot that they take pretty directly, and it's a pretty faithful adaptation, but there's obviously some changes that get made, and it's worth looking at.
And I would just tell the audience, it's like, oh, we're talking about a Disney film, but this is not like your traditional saccharine Disney film. This is something that, if anyone out there like claims that they are film appreciators, like if you are a fan of cinema, this has everything you want. What else would you want in a film? This is a throwback. This is, like I said, your heroes are heroic. Your villains are dastardly. Your dames are gorgeous and cunning. And this just has literally everything. Everyone could get behind punching a Nazi, and this film has it. It is the everyman, like just to the umpth degree. It is fantastic cast, great effects for the time that still hold up to this day. 99% of them. I mean, go watch The Rocketeer. Like seriously, if you haven't, because you're like 15, then I'll give you a pass. But anyone else, time's up. Watch The Rocketeer. Like it's
and if you saw it, see it again.
Yeah,
I promise you'll like it more.
Yeah. I agree. I liked it more again rewatching it. I hadn't seen it in a few years when I watched it again last night. And again, the thing to me, one of the things that's really just exciting to me as someone who's a comic creator, as someone who, a lot of my friends are comic creators, the idea that they let Dave Stevens be a hands-on producer on this movie, like a lot of times, people either do work for hire stuff where they create a character, and like if someone decided to make the Craptacular B-sides, which are characters I created for Marvel, into a movie, I'd have no say over anything that happened. I'd have no ability to touch that. If someone bought the rights to one of my comics that I've done for myself and turned it into a movie, I probably would not have a lot of say over what that final product looked like, right? I wouldn't have a lot of bargaining power, and it's just going to be, managed to death by executives and not, really honor the creative vision that started. And for Dave Stevens to get that opportunity, it's a really special project to hit the level that it hit. For if you're a fan of comic books, comic book creators, and seeing people have some transmedia success with their projects.
Brian David Marshall, thank you so much for lending your very specific lens on this too. Like, perfect guest, of course, for something like this. But where can everyone find you when you're not talking about The Rocketeer?
I'm probably just hanging out at Jim Hanley's universe still, waiting for famous people to walk in. No, I'm on Twitter most of the time, all day, at Top 8 Games, talking about food, drinks, comics, movies, Magic the Gathering, whatever.
Perfect. Jason Ed Lauder Alt, where can everyone find you?
I'm Jason E. Alt on Twitter, and I have a link tree with all my links in it. Go explore my links.
E stands for Ed Lauder.
It does.
It doesn't not.
And I am John the Host. You could follow me at John the Host. You could also follow this very show at the Cult of Films, or Cult of Films. Sorry, I've been drinking. We didn't even talk about our drinks. I picked the 1792 tonight because it looks like something that Cliff Secord would drink. So
I made a drink called the Cliff Secord.
Oh,
which was gin, tangerines, lime, and Ancho Reyes Verde.
If you're not going to plug your cocktail Twitter feed, can someone else? Because it is.
Hey, you can find it. I mean, it's just on my Twitter. I'm also top_8_games on Instagram, and that is almost entirely drinks with a smattering of cats. Sometimes together.
Also called life. Jason,
Yeah.
are you drinking a Rocketeer
I'm
theme?
drinking a Bell's Oberon because it's Bell's Oberon season, and I live in Kalamazoo, Beer City, USA. So
Delicious.
Yeah, we did it.
We did it. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.